So let's now talk about data frames. Data frames are also one of the data structures available in R. So just like vectors, list, and matrix and arrays, so there is data frames also. So data frame is a special kind of list where you can keep a list of same number of elements. Okay, so if you want to contain a list in a data frame, then the length of all those lists should be same. Okay, so let's see an example for that. So here I'm trying to create three vectors. Okay, and you can see the length of all these three vectors are same, so 3, 3, and 3. Okay, and to create a data frame, you have to use this keyword data.frame, and then inside you can pass all the values that you want to store in that particular data frame. So if I'm going to run this, and let's check now. Clear. So now you can see your data frame has been created, and you can see all the values are actually aligned column wise, right? So just like if you have seen an Excel file or any data file or a data table in any databases or something like that. So all the values, like each column have different set of values, right? So data frame is very useful and very much important when it comes to data manipulation, or when you want to read files, read values from the files of CSV types or Excel types or even tab delimited files. Okay. So whenever your data set has values such that all columns have different set of values, then you can use data frame to store those particular values. Okay. So basically all the values are going to be stored like you can imagine a table, and then there will be different columns in that table. Okay, fine. And then all the values. So suppose you are going to create a table for all the students that are present in class. So you can say that name of the students, then ID of the students, then class, then section, then suppose you are talking about some marks. So here maths marks or English marks or science. Okay, so you can create a table like this. Okay, so here what will happen, each individual row will correspond to a data to certain person. Okay, so suppose if I say a, and then this value, this value, this value, so each row is actually belonging to this particular person A. Okay, and you can create an ID column as well, sorry, serial number column as well. Okay, so this type of architecture a table has, and this type of architecture a data frame also has. Okay, so each value is going to be stored in a column. Fine. So this is how your data frame looks like. You can see here all the vectors that you have actually passed, so they have been stored column wise, right? So the first column is vec1, the second column is vec2, and the third column is vec3. Okay, so this is how your data frame looks like. So let's go ahead and see the structure of our data frame. So let me clear this. Cool. So now if you go ahead and check the class, so df is of class data.frame. Okay, and also you can assign, there is no particular name of this column, right? So all the names are similarly the vec1, vec2, and vec3, whatever name that you have passed, right? And the data type is integer as given. Okay, so now if you want to assign names to your column, every column should have a particular name, so you can simply pass the name while passing the data. Okay, so when I'm passing vec1, I can simply give vec1 in quotes, and that will be the name of that my first column, or you can simply replace it by ABC or whatever name that you want to provide. You can provide it like this. So while creating the data frame, just pass the name that you want to assign to that particular value. Okay, so if I go ahead and run this, so you will be able to see. Okay, so I think let's change the name, because this was the same name that we had given previously. Okay, so now if I run this, so now you can see the name has been changed. Okay, so whatever name you are going to provide here, so that name is going to show up in the column name. Okay, and now if I go ahead and check the structure of our data frame, so if you remember this keyword you used, we used in vectors and list as well. So str gives you the structure of any container object. So it is giving back the class of which our container belongs. Then it gives the three observation of three variables. Okay, the first variable is the integer type and has values like this. The second is also integer type and has values, and also third is also integer type and has these values. So structure can give you all the structure. In a structured way, it will tell you that what is the data type of that particular container, what values it has, and what are the data type of those values, how many values are there. So all the things are given by str. Okay, also if you want to check the column names, like what are the names of the columns, then you can simply use names function. Okay, so your column name will be returned. So this will be very useful when we will do the data manipulation part. So this will be actually very important, checking the column names and getting the column names. So we'll discuss about this all in the data manipulation part. Okay, then if you want to check how many rows are there, so n row is the command, so you can use that to get the number of rows, and n call for the number of columns. Okay, And then one of the most important functions that you can use with data frame is summary. Okay, so this is simply going to return all the statistical summary out of your data. So minimum, maximum, median, mean, everything it is going to return. Okay, so we are going to use this function as well when we do the data manipulations, and when we talk about the statistical analysis that we can do with R. So we'll be talking about all these summaries there. Okay, so all these terms we'll be discussing in the upcoming lectures. No need to worry about that. So for the time being, you can just remember that this function is used for data frame to get the statistical values out of that data. Okay, so you do not have to write any function, or you do not have to separately calculate mean or median of each column. You can simply check out here, and you can say, okay, the median is this, the mean is this, and so on. Okay, fine. Also, you can create a, yeah, so here I'm trying to give an example of, I'm creating a data frame where I'm trying to store the values of I am trying to store three values, that is the name, the age, and the profession of a person. Okay, so the first vector I'm passing is with the name vector. Okay, the second thing I'm passing is a age vector, and the third thing I'm passing is a profession vector. Okay, so I have included it all in the list. So I'm binding this all three vectors in a list, and I'm simply passing this list in the data.frame. Okay. So what I was trying to show you is that you can simply pass the vectors as well. Directly the vectors you can also pass. So all the vectors that I've created, I can simply pass these vectors as well. Or I can create a list of all these vectors and I can simply pass the list. Okay. So now my data frame contains these three values. If I run this, so you can see there is no actually column name that I have specified here. So it simply stores all the name values, then age values, and the profession values. So now if I can use this names functions also to assign the name. Okay, so I'm using this names function, and using the assignment operator, I'm passing all the three values that I want to keep the name of my column as. So name, age, and profession. So let's run this. And now if I check, so you can see the column names has been assigned. Okay, so the name is given, the age is given, profession. So this is how you can actually store different kind of data in your data frames. Okay, fine. So let's go ahead and see how can we access elements in our data frame. So let's now see how we can access elements from a data frame. So this is the data frame that we had created previously, and we had named the columns as A, B, C. Okay, so just like most of the steps are similar to what we talked about in list, vectors, and even matrices. So the same steps we are going to follow. So suppose you want to access this particular column. So you want to values from a column, a single column or multiple columns out of a data frame. So you can simply pass the name of that particular column. Okay, or you can simply pass the index of that column. Okay, so this is the first index, second index, and third index. Okay, so that's where you can do it. So suppose I want to get by the name of the column, so I'm passing the name of the column A in the square brackets with our data frame, and this is going to return a complete data frame to you. Okay, and similarly, if you are just going to pass the index, so this index is 1, so our that column has been return back. Okay, so these two are giving the same values. So either you can get the column values using the column name, or simply you can pass the index. Okay, now one difference that I want you to understand, and this is the same case with every container that we have studied till now. So that is the difference between the single bracket and the double bracket. So now I want to show you the live example. So here you can see that if I'm trying to give a single using a single square bracket, and then I'm passing the index 1. So basically I'm getting a sliced version of our data frame, right? So this was our whole data frame. So this is our whole data frame. Okay, so consider it like a box. And when you give a single square bracket and pass the index, so you are getting basically a sliced version, right? You are getting this part. Okay, so this box that we have sliced, so we are getting this box as a return. Similarly, if you're going to give 3, then you will be getting this sliced box. Okay, but when you one second, yeah, so let me clear this. Yeah, so that's what we are getting, right? We're getting a sliced version. But when you use a double square bracket and then you pass an index, so you are basically getting the vector inside this column. Okay, so I hope you got the difference. Here you are basically slicing the data frame. Okay, but here you are accessing the vector inside that particular column. You want the output as a vector. Okay, not as a slice. Fine. So why this is important? Now suppose you want to get the value inside this particular data frame. Say you want this 13 value or 14 value. So now if you're going to just say I know that this is first index, second index, and third index. So suppose I pass the second index, I want to get that 13 value. So this is going to throw you an error. Okay, why? Because you have sliced the whole column, right? There is nothing that is treating it like a data frame itself. Okay, it's not a vector. You cannot get inside that particular value. Okay, so for doing that, we can actually get that this particular value as a vector. So using the double square brackets, we can get the vector. And now when you want to get the first value, or let's say second value, then now you can use the second square bracket, and now it is going to give you back the values. Okay, so this is one difference, and this is how you can access some values that are inside the column. Okay, and similarly, if you want to access multiple columns, you can give a vector that will contain the name of the columns that you want to retrieve. So I'm passing A and B. So it will get returned to me both the columns A and B. Okay. And this is again a sliced version. Okay. This is not the vector version. This is a slice of the data frame that you are getting. Okay. And if you want to get again from this third column, suppose there was a, yeah, from this third column, I want the third value. So again, you have to use the double brackets. So this is basically, I'm trying to show you that you can do this using index as well as the column names. Okay, so I'm giving the column name C, and I'm trying to access the third value of that column. So I can do this by using this method. Okay, so rest of the things remain same. 1 colon 2 means you want the values of 1 and 2. So if I run this, so I'm getting the first two columns. Okay, and if you are going to give 1 colon 2 and comma, so you are going to receive the first and second row. Okay, so we have seen this particular thing in the matrix, right? If you are going to give a comma, so basically this represents the rows and this represents the column, the second part. So if you are not passing any column, that means you want the all of the columns, and but the rows you only want first and second row. So that's why it's running a value like this. Okay, so in this case, what will happen? We are not passing any row, so we want all the rows, but columns we want only second and third. So if I run this, so see, you are getting only second and third columns, and the rows you are getting all. Fine. So this is how you can do. And in the same case, in this case, if you want to get the first and second row, and suppose you only want the column, say, to second column. So see what is the result. So 34 and 35, right? So this is the option that you are getting. Okay, so this is how you can use a colon also to get some values that you want to extract from your data frame, some certain rows or some certain columns. Okay, fine. Now there is one more method which you can use to get get values from a column. Okay, so let me replace this. I have changed the name to A. Okay, so instead of giving the square brackets, you can simply use the dollar sign. Okay, and using this dollar sign, you can simply pass the column name, and it is going to return back the column. Okay, and this is going to return the column, not the slice of the data frame. Okay, so if you want to get particular values after this, so let's say I say 2. So now you can see you can directly extract the values, and you do not have to use the double square brackets. Okay, so this dollar sign is basically going to return the vector inside that column. Okay, so it is not going to slice our data frame like a single square bracket does. Okay, so you can also use this particular keyword, that is dollar, to extract values out of any column. So you can do that, or if you want to use the conditional operator, suppose you want from the third column you want the values that are greater than 45. So this is going to give a logical response that, okay, the first value is not greater than 45, it is true, rest of those values are greater than, so they are responding true and true. So let's check the values actually. So this is my third column, you can see 45, 46, 47. Okay, so this is going to respond back that 45 is not actually greater than 45, so false. Then 46 is true, 47 is true. Okay, and similarly using logical operators also you can extract the values. So here I'm passing false, true, true. That means I don't want the first column, I want the second column and the third column. So this is going to give you the second and third column. And similarly in this case, if I use the comma keyword that we were using, so suppose I give a comma, so now it becomes that I want the I don't want the first row, I want the second row and third row, and columns I want all the columns. So let's see. So here you can see the first row is not printed, second and third row is printed, and the columns, all of the columns are given back, right? So this is how you can actually uh, use the dollar sign. Okay, and here I am actually trying to get in the first row all the values that are greater than 45, and columns I want all the columns. So if I run this, so see, right? So what basically is happening, I am telling it to give me all those values for which the column in column C the value is greater than 45. I want all those values, right? So here you can see the first value had 45. Okay, so the first row is not printed because my first condition was what, understand it like this also. Let's say here, if I have printed this, what did it mean? That I don't want my first row, I want my second row, I want my third row, and not and all the columns, right? So we have seen that what this actually give in response. So let's try and run this again. So what it actually give us response? It gives us a logical operator, right? So now if I pass this logical operator here, similarly that we have done here, so what is happening? I don't want my first row, I want my second row and third row. So if you are directly pass this particular object expression in this particular data frame, then simply you are actually passing the logical vectors like this. Okay, so again the first row is not going to come, second and third row is going to be displayed. Okay, so this is how you can use the relational operators and logical operators as well. Fine, cool. Let's move ahead and see how we can modify a certain data frame. So let's print this data frame first. So suppose I have 3 columns, right? Now I want a extra column. I want a new column to be added. So suppose I want to add a column D. So I can simply give the index D, okay, and I can pass all the values that I want to keep in this particular column. So I am passing that. So let's see our data frame now. So you can see a new column has been printed, right? D column, okay. And you can also use this method cbind that we have seen in matrices. So you can also use the column bind method, in which you can simply pass the data frame name, then the column that you want to bind with that data frame. Okay, so here all the bindings are done column wise, right? So that's why we are using cbind. So I'm trying to give a data frame, then I'm passing the column that you want to add, and in that column what all values I want to keep. So that's what I'm passing here. So let's run this. You can see a new column has been added again. Okay, so this is how these 2 methods you can use to add columns into your new columns into your data frame. Okay, and again if you want to modify some value in a column, so let's see in the D column. So I am trying to replace the first value. What is the first value? That is A. So I'm trying to replace this value by X. Okay, you can simply use the assignment operator, and you can call that particular value using this data frame access the keyword that you use to access any particular member. So I'm accessing in the DH column, I'm accessing the first value, I'm simply replacing that with X. So let's try and run this. So you can see the value has been replaced. The A was there, now X is there. Okay, so this is how you can modify your value as well. Fine. Now these were the talks of adding columns. You can also add rows as well. Okay, so if you have all these values, so you can simply add a row. So here after 14 I'm trying to add 67, then 68, 69, and after Z I'm trying to add A, and after Y I'm trying to add N. Okay, so you can simply give the index. So basically I have 3 rows, so where will the new value go? 4th index, right? So I'm passing the 4th index, and then the column I'm not giving, right? Because these will all be added in my row. Okay, and column means in each column it is going to be added. So if I run this, so you can see all the values are now added in my row. Okay, so this that you have not provided any column value, that means each value is going to be assigned to each of these columns. Okay, so that's what is happening here. So my new row is added. Okay, and you can also use the rbind method. Okay, so in the again rbind method you are going to pass the data frame, and then you are going to pass all the values that you want to add. So it will automatically be attached at the 5th position. Okay, so if I run this, so you can see yeah, this was a 4th value, now 5th value. You can see last value was 67. So now my this new value has been added. Okay, fine. So this is how you can add values to your data frame, add columns, add rows, and modify any value. Okay, and let's go ahead and check the number of columns. So now it's 5, and number of rows it's 5. And initially how many rows we had, how many columns we had? We had 3 rows and 4 columns. No, sorry, 3 rows and 3 columns, right? 3 cross frame data frame we had, and now we have actually 5 cross 5. Okay, so all the values have now been added. Okay, so this is my new data frame. And similarly, if you want to delete any value from the data frame, you can simply assign that particular column with null. Okay, so suppose this is my E column. Okay, so suppose this column I want to remove this whole column from the data frame. Okay, so I am simply going to assign all this particular column with null value. So if I run this, and now if I print it here, so now you can see that last column has been replaced. Okay, so the E column has been replaced now. Okay, and now I check the number of columns, so it becomes 4. Fine. So I had 5 earlier, 5 number of columns I had 5. Now I have number of columns 4. So this is how you can delete a column from a data frame also. Okay, and again you can also use the negative index that we have talked about in the whole session, like with all the containers. So using negative index as well, you can drop certain values. Okay. So if I run this, what exactly am I trying to tell? I want to drop the fifth row. Okay, because this is the first value. If I had passed this particular value in this column, it is going to fail because I don't have a fifth column. But if I pass -4 here, so I'm basically trying to say to replace my fourth column, sorry, to drop my fourth column. Here I'm trying to drop my fifth column. So if I run this, so you can see the fifth row, sorry, I was saying column, this is actually row. So I am basically going to delete my fifth row. So you can see this was my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth row, 55, 56, 57. Now you can see it is not there. Okay, and if I check the number of rows, so there are only 4 rows now. Okay, so this is how you can drop your data frames as well. Okay, so we have talked about all the basic things that are needed in the data frame. So we have talked how to create a data frame, how can you get the summary out of a data frame, how we can access elements, how we can add new rows and columns, and how we can modify values. Okay, all those things we have discussed. Now there are many different things that is associated with data frames, and all of that we'll be discussing in the data manipulation part. Okay, and also when we will be talking about how to read files, different set of files, then also we'll be talking about data frames. Okay, so this is just a basic overview of a data frame, how we can create a data frame and all of these things, and whatever the operations, there are majority of operations which you can do on data frames. All that we'll be talking in upcoming lesson of data manipulation. Okay, so for the time being, let's move ahead to the next data structure.